right. So we've got about, I think, 20, 30 minutes to talk, and I love an interactive presentation. So I'm very interested in your insights and thoughts as well. Is the royal family out of date? We have the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The celebrations, all the official celebrations are next weekend for any of you that are following. So our next week's presentation is very timely. But it's a question that a lot of people are asking now. She's 96 years old. We're seeing that she's having more mobility issues, not very reliably able to attend a lot of events and engagements. It's kind of a day-by-day basis. So inevitably, this question is on everybody's mind, is what's going to happen once she eventually passes, and how well is King Charles going to be doing at the helm of the British monarchy? Okay, next, please. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a number of kind of state occasions or royal events. And I'd like to just test people here and virtually. The first couple are really easy just to get everybody warmed up, but just to see if you recognize some of these kind of famous events or types of things that we associate with royalty. So who knows what this is? Coronation, of course. This was in 1953. You can see it was a very serious and somber occasion. Everybody looks very, somber because Queen Elizabeth II was anointed by God, if you believe the Anglican Church in the UK. And she took over, obviously, when her father, King George VI, passed away in 1952. Okay, very, very famous occasion. How about this one? Yes, the wedding. Yes, the wedding of Charles and Diana back in 1981. Seems like a long time ago. Anybody else here wake up early to watch it on TV? Yes, a couple of people. And you can see, one of the things I wanted to point out is a lot of these images, you can see that they're surrounded by lots of pomp and circumstance. So you see here the military guard. Some of those people are probably actually bodyguards. Uniforms that have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's all very stated, elegant, and very much intentional to arouse those images of stability and something that's been around for a long time. Okay, we're going to get a little harder now. Let's do the next one. How about this? Does anybody know what this is? Sorry?
Honoring Prince Philip's death.
Oh, Prince Philip's death? No, this is actually state opening of Parliament. So this happens every year. In fact, this is the first year that the Queen did not attend. Prince Charles went in her place, as well as William was there too. But this is the official opening of the next year of Parliament in London. And again, you see formal attire, you see guards, you see the House of Lords, you see the nice fancy wigs that we see on television shows. Those still exist, in London, and it's all part of the ceremony of, how to introduce a new year into the calendar. And you can see Charles is there with, also Camilla was there in this particular occasion. I think this is 2021. All right, next. How about this one?
I know.
Does anybody know in the chat? I don't know, John, if anybody's typing anything. Someone being knighted, absolutely. It's called an investiture. Does anybody know who this particular gentleman is? Exactly, Captain Moore, Sir John Moore. And he walked around the garden and raised something like 33 million pounds for the NHS during COVID times. And all he did was walk around his back garden. And if anybody of you know what houses are like in London, that's probably a very small area. And he raised a lot of money and was knighted. And then unfortunately, he passed away at 100 years old, not too long after this of COVID. But he became really a national hero. And these kind of investitures, again, this particular one, because of COVID, was not held in a palace, but you can still see the sword, being put on his shoulders. And so knights, dames, all of those kinds of things have been around, again, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I follow obviously a lot of royal things on Twitter. And whenever there is investitures, people are dressed in their finest and they're posting. I'm so proud. My son, my daughter, everybody came to see me today. And people feel very proud to have been acknowledged that way by the monarchy. Next. Thanks, John. How about this one? Some people here may have actually seen this in person. Changing of the guard. Excellent. Exactly. So this is Buckingham Palace, number of different regiments. They rotate around, and it's a very formal ceremony that happens every day at 11 o'clock. And everything is always very punctual there, where the people guarding the Queen, they change out the forces, and then the next people come on guard. And there's a lot of things you've seen on TV and memes and so on about people trying to get the guards to smile or to crack a face and to joke around. And they're very well trained not to do that. But they actually have a real job, which is to protect the Queen. All right, next. How about this one? Excellent, Trooping the Color. So this is actually, anybody know why we celebrate Trooping the Color? It's the official celebration of the Queen's birthday. So her birthday is actually in April, but it's been celebrated in June for a number of years, a number of reigns actually, just because of the weather considerations, which I'm sure we'll continue on because Charles's birthday is in November. So probably will be a similar thing. And this is all the different troops parading in front of the Queen. And now bonus question, does anybody know what Trooping the Color means? Again, it goes back to olden times. A lot of these traditions do, and it has to do with showing the flag. So each of the troops come by and before and after battle and show their colors. And that is the proof of who has won the battle and the proof that the Queen or the monarch is still prevailing. But now it's obviously just a ceremonial occasion. But again, now. You can see
at 5. Don't put it any higher than 5. Sorry.
Oh, is there a question? No? Okay. Again, you can see all these different uniforms, the different regiments, the different military branches. And this is going to be happening this coming, I think, Friday or Saturday in London as one of the Platinum Jubilee events. All right. I think maybe there's one or two more. How about this? Anybody in chat know what this is? Perfect. See, you're 2 for 2. That's amazing. So yes, this is the Royal Garden Party, which have been largely unchanged since Queen Victoria's times in terms of what happens, the process. I've actually been to one, as I said in my bio. It was fantastic. So they play God Save the Queen. The Beefeaters are there. You come down onto the lawn if you're one of the lucky 5,000 people that are there. And you get a fantastic tea, of which you'll never have better in your life. The tea and the cakes and the scones and the biscuits and the desserts are just to die for. And then they mill around and meet people. So if anybody is interested in going to a Royal Garden Party, because we are part of the Commonwealth, there's actually a system in place where there's a lottery, and number of Canadians each year are selected to be able to go. So if you wanted to apply, at unitedkingdom.gc.ca. That's how I got to go. I didn't do anything fantastic, or I didn't serve or lay my life down for the Queen or anything like that. I just applied, and my daughter and I got to go. So there's a certain, again, percentage of tickets that are allocated. So you just apply, and then they'll tell you if you got the tickets or not. It's free to go. Everything is free at the party, but of course you have to get yourself to London and get some accommodations and so on. It also applies for Trooping the Color. They also have tickets for that, and also Royal Ascot. So if you're interested in any of those events and participating in person, you may be one of the lucky thousands that gets to go. So again, been around for a long time. I'll be very impressed if anybody knows this one. This is the last one. You don't know this one? Anybody online? Okay, I'll just wait a second just to see. Okay, this is called the Ceremony of the Keys. Anybody know the location? Maybe that'll help a little bit. Tower of London, fantastic. So this event happens every night, and it has happened since the 14th century. It's the oldest known military ceremony in the world. And basically it's a very prescribed ceremony where the warden yeoman, or the yeoman warder, sorry, I said it wrong. He comes out with the keys and the lantern and says a few things basically to guard the Queen's gates, and the gates get locked, and then that's it. It's never been canceled. It's never been missed in all those, thousands of years, even during the Blitz, even during the wars. And it's just another example of the kind of ceremony that's really associated with the monarchy that means a lot to a lot of people. This is also open to the public. I've been to London many times. I've never been able to get tickets because they're usually a year or two sold out in advance. So I don't imagine this is all that exciting, to be honest, but to be part of a historic thing sometimes is worth it. All right. So when you look at all of these images, very, meaningful, been around for a long time, ceremonial, prescribed. John, if you could go to the next slide. What do you think when you see these kinds of things? Do you see them as classic and iconic? This is William and Kate's wedding. Or do you see them as out of date and out of touch? What's kind of your reaction when you see those kinds of things? Anyone? Iconic? Okay. Yes, a couple of nods. Anyone else? Anybody think like, who needs this? We don't, it's old, it's out of date. No, nobody thinks that. Okay, that's good. I mean, I'm sure if we were all that age, we might see some of these things as irrelevant or meaningless, but they all have a purpose, and the purpose is to make sure that the crown survives. That's really the ultimate goal of the monarchy. There's lots of things that are going on, but really it's just to make sure that the monarchy is still around. And so these things that evoke memories and people to feel nationalistic and loyal, that's really what a lot of these images are about. And nobody can do some of these things better than the Brits. I mean, when I went to the royal wedding, went to is kind of a loose term. I was just standing on the street with 2 million other people, but I was in London at the time of the wedding, and it's just incredible. They know how to put on these kind of events. I mean, they're very well organized. There's no crime, there's no litter. People are all very well behaved. And within 10 minutes when it's over, the streets are cleaned and people just get on with their day. It's incredible. So they really know what they're doing. Any other thoughts about, in terms of the monarchy feeling out of date? Does anybody feel like we should abolish them here in Canada?
We have someone online.
Yes.
Who says definitely out of date.
Definitely out of date. Okay.
Another person online says they suggest responsibility, duty, and tradition.
Yes, responsibility, duty, and tradition. Those are definitely some of the hallmarks of the royal family that they stand by and don't really alter from. Any other thoughts or comments about Canada? Aha. Okay, so someone's saying that tradition and cost is a bit of a conflict. Yeah, absolutely. And these things do cost a lot of money, particularly the security aspects of it, believe it or not. That's the lion's share of most of these events and what they cost. And they never really tell us what the cost is because they don't want people to know, kind of the ins and outs of what's happening, trying to protect the royal family. I mean, the corollary argument to that is that it also brings in a lot of tourism. Not here, particularly in Canada, of course, but in the UK, the millions, if not, tens of millions that are going to be spent over the Platinum Jubilee in the next, weekends and then in the coming ahead are going to be quite significant. But that's a very real question. Is it worth it? And every year there's something called the sovereign grant, which is how the Queen and the family get paid, basically. So what their palaces, their travel, their security, and it's published and it's outlined by person in the royal family. So what did Prince Charles spend on trains and planes and so on? And it's always challenged because the UK do pay for that out of their taxes, UK individuals. And every year there's a lot of debate, are we getting our money's worth? And that's, again, another prime question that they ask themselves all the time when they send somebody on a royal tour, when they send them someplace, is it worth it in the public's eye? So that's a great question. Anything else? Just FYI, to actually abolish the monarchy in Canada, does anybody know what that would take? Yeah, act of parliament, change of constitution. And in fact, what I think is the most challenging aspect of it is unanimous decision by all 10 provinces. So I don't think any politician in any province or territory is going to take on that battle. and not in the near future anyways, to try to, when you look at all the other issues that are going on, it doesn't seem top of priority list. And it's definitely a political hot potato. I do think there's a cost element there as well, because if you think about all the things that would have to change if we abolish the monarchy, our money, our parliamentary system, our court system, there's just so many aspects that it would be a financial decision as well. I don't know what that cost is, but I don't foresee that's happening anytime soon. We do see some countries that have given up the monarchy, like Jamaica's talking about it, Barbados. Australia did a referendum a few years ago, and everybody was expecting that they would vote no, and they ended up voting yes. So sometimes the monarchy comes through when you least expect it. That was kind of a shocker to everybody. But the Queen and they understand that. They see that, how can a country that's thousands of miles away look at me as the head of the state? And she understands that these things are going to happen. All right, next slide, please. So if you look at the images that I just showed you and you contrast them with these images, so this is what we're bombarded with every day. When we look on the internet, on our phones and on our TVs, we see Kim Kardashian, we see the slap from the Oscars, we see OJ, and who knows who's in the top right corner there? Anybody know who that is? Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And if you're on any of those social media sites, you're probably just as sick as I am of seeing this, because it's just everywhere and it's too much. So when you compare this to what the royal family is doing, they are very careful about the images that they put out to the public. Now, sometimes they can't help the paparazzi, and that's a whole nother conversation, but they very much want things to be private, and they want to keep that mystery of the monarchy. That is one of the things that keeps it alive. Okay, next, please. So I just thought I would share with you some kind of mantras that really do talk to how the monarchy plays out and how they've tried to stay relevant for 1,000 years. Keep calm and carry on. Some of you may have heard of that. It actually comes from war times. They were war posters that were posted all around the UK back in World War II. And it was really to keep people from kind of freaking out, about the bombs and everything that was going on, and to just keep on going. But it's definitely been also related about the royal family as well. Royalty is completely different than celebrity. Royalty has a magic all its own, and it really does depend on that magic to keep it alive. Some people will say, well, there's no power. They don't have any decision-making power. But the royal family has a soft power and a convening power. So if you think back to even Diana days, or now with William and Kate, if they go to an event, people want to be at that event. People will pay for those tickets. People will contribute to those charities because they want to be in that aura. They want to be around those royal people. And they really try to keep that mystique so that people want to come. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. Is anybody familiar with that term? Yes, Janice? Where does that come from? Okay. It's familiar? Glenn, anyone? It's Shakespeare, actually, and it's as true today as it was with Richard III, I think is where that came from. The crown always knows that they can be abolished at any time. That is a constant fear and worry. So they're always looking at how to be relevant, how to get the people to feel they're getting their money's worth, to be seen. And so, even now, Queen Elizabeth is probably thinking, like, what's going to happen when Prince Charles becomes king? Is that going to be a big problem? And so it's a constant, worry for them, which is why that leads to the next one. I must be seen to be believed. And Queen Elizabeth has been saying that her whole reign. So she knows she has to get out there in public and to be seen, for people to believe that there's, again, some value in what the monarchy does for people around the world. Never complain, never explain. So this one comes under a lot of fire lately because of what's been happening with Meghan and Harry. So if any of you are following the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and what they're doing in California, the royal family doesn't respond to press issues, doesn't fight back, doesn't put a counter offer, counter arguments out there. They just silently keep on going and doing their thing. And that's, again, one of the things people really admire about them. But now with the younger generation, people like I showed you those other slides, people want to be out there. They want their 15 minutes of fame. They want to be relevant today, tomorrow, the next day. So we're seeing a little bit more exposure. Did anybody watch the Oprah interview with Harry and Meghan? Any reaction, comments to that? Yay, nay? What did you think? Anybody online? Heather, go ahead. Yeah. So Heather's saying that she thought it was astounding, really, that that Meghan commented that she was suicidal based on the way that she was treated. Yeah. Anyone else feel like that? I have to wonder, because she was pregnant, if that fed into it at all, because, hormones can do strange things to people. And it's hard to believe someone as confident as her could really have those types of feelings. But I mean, no one can judge, right? That's who she is. But I think oversharing is, you can pretty much say that that's kind of the name of their game these days. And that's a royal no-no. Absolutely. When you go to never complain, never explain. I'm sure they're apoplectic at the palace of some of the things that they've been saying and doing. And this book that's coming out of Harry's supposedly later this year or next year, again, it's going to have to be salacious to sell. And, those secrets, no one wants them out there. So
John Kennedy online says duty requires being silent. By the way, John has been scoring about 100% on the questions.
Way to go, John. I hope you're coming next week. Okay. And I've talked about this a little bit already. We must not let in daylight upon magic. There was a documentary that was done called The Royal Family back in, I think, 1969. And it was Prince Philip's idea. He was a modernist, believe it or not, within the royal family at the time, and he wanted them to be seen, to be believed. So cameras followed them around for about a year, and the royal family was filmed in Balmoral having a picnic and various different things. And it was widely watched, but it's never been seen since, because they felt it let in too much daylight into the magic. And it was too much of seeing them on a daily basis. And the Queen was, washing up and things like that. And it was too close to the bone, if you will. Once in a while, it comes up on YouTube. I actually saw it a couple of years ago, and it's pretty mundane looking now compared to what we would consider reality TV to be. But still, it's all about that mythology and mystery. And lastly, I just want to say the monarchy plays the long game. They're not here for decisions for today, for tomorrow. They want to be here forever. And so they don't change quickly, but they do change. So if you think about back in 1936, when Edward abdicated, he couldn't be married to a divorced person and be king, right? And that was a taboo and probably one of the biggest scandals in royal history. And then even the Queen's sister, Margaret, she wasn't allowed to marry a divorced person as well, Peter Townsend, and that was a big sadness and tragedy. Well, look at the Prince of Wales today. Charles is a divorced person, and he is going to be king. So, some might argue that he should or he shouldn't, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But the monarchy will change. It's just a slow change, and it doesn't happen at the pace of the rest of the world. Any comments or thoughts about any of these? Is that kind of what the royal family stands for in your mind?
We have a new one online. Meredy says the monarch represents the nation. She has a ceremonial role that frees the prime minister from all that, so he can spend his time running the country. It is the Queen who is the encourager and sympathizer. She should be the quiet center while politics swirls and swings.
No, that's very, very true. And in fact, she probably does a lot of things. The royal family does a lot of things that the other people don't want to do. To be honest, I think their lives are pretty boring. I mean, it looks exciting at times to see, the palaces and the outfits and all those kinds of things. But, another tree planting, another, plaque to be unveiled, another pulling a pint in a pub in some place in Northern England. I mean, I can imagine it gets old very quickly. Even the overseas tours are grindingly exhausting. Charles and Camilla were just here last week, and I think they did something like 10 or 11 engagements per day. over 3 days and traveled, I don't know, 9,000 miles or something really crazy from the East Coast to the Northwest Territories. I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, it's hard, and you're constantly meeting people. I saw a quote once from Princess Diana that she said that being the Princess of Wales is like going to a wedding every day as the bride. And that's what it's like, because you're always a center of attention. You have to always smile, the weather, no matter what. I mean, the last Jubilee, the Diamond Jubilee, when the Queen and Prince Philip were standing on a barge on the Thames, and there was all these boats floating by, they stood there in the pouring rain for 4 hours, not even a bathroom break. Like, no, thank you. So it may look glamorous to some people, and some certain events, of course, you see William and Kate at the opening of, Bond movie, looking all glamorous, but that's the 1%, I think, of the actual job.
John Kennedy online says they are not doing it for themselves.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
I should say that the loyal opposition, Susan McAllister, has been weighing in. Far too expensive for Canada. We live in a democracy. Royalty has no place. Let's use the money we spend to uphold the monarchy on giving a living wage to all Canadians.
Okay. So that's a great counter argument as well, is other people might need that money more. Okay, let's keep going. So the Queen has never put a foot wrong in 70 years. It's well known that people say this all the time about her, except once. Does anybody know when that was? Yes, you were going to say the same thing. Next, please. So when Diana died, she got it wrong. She misread totally the public response, and it was an outpouring of grief such as Britain and the world has never seen before or since. I usually start a lot of my talks asking people where they were when they heard Princess Diana died. And it always evokes an emotional response in people of, they remember it very clearly, what happened, how upset they were. And none of us knew her, right? We just saw her on TV and in doing good works. And the Queen really had a different agenda. She wanted to protect her grandsons. That was what her goal was. And she felt initially that it was the Spencer responsibility to look after the funeral, because, of course, by that point, Charles and Diana were divorced. So she wasn't royal anymore, but they quickly had to turn that around. And I give a lot of credit to Charles for that, because he really advocated on her behalf to have a proper state funeral and to make it open to the public. And he went and reclaimed her body from Paris and so on. But the Queen, felt like it was a private matter. And, there was a lot of outcry about the flag. Anybody remember that? People thought the flag should be hung at half mast, lowered to half mast. And of course, that's not done, because the royal standard represents the Queen being in residence. It has nothing to do with somebody dying or showing respect or what have you. But the people in the papers were complaining and bitter about it. And eventually they put up the Union Jack and flew that at half staff as kind of a compromise. But if you recall, they stayed up in Balmoral all week, and all the headlines were screaming, where are you? Why aren't you here with us? We need you, that type of thing. Some of that I do think was the press kind of doing a counteroffensive, because they took a lot of heat after the way that Princess Diana died and the paparazzi chasing her and so on. So they were deflecting, I think, a little bit of it. But in the end, the Queen did prevail, right? She came down early. She made the speech up in the top right-hand corner, talking about what the princess had meant to her, and she recovered. I did read that they were quite concerned about their personal safety when they started to do some of those initial walkabouts. I don't know if any of you remember, but Prince Andrew and Prince Edward were kind of sent out as advance, defense, and they weren't attacked. The Queen went out with Prince Philip right up the Buckingham Palace gates in case there was an incident. They could be whisked right inside. So there was a real concern about safety, and there was a real concern about the monarchy that had never been rated lower in all of Queen Elizabeth's time. But, she was able to turn it around. So when situations can warrant it, the royal family can come through. Okay, next, please. So let's move on a little bit to our Prince of Wales, Prince Charles. So we're going to do a little poll question for our virtual audience, and we're just going to ask everybody here in the room, do you think he will make a good king? So your choices are yes, absolutely, no, not a chance, or 3, maybe we will see. So here in the room, what do you think? Who votes for yes, absolutely, he'll make a good king? Okay, we got a couple of big Charles supporters here, 3. Okay, who thinks no, not a chance? Oh, that warms my heart. Okay, nobody. And what about maybe we'll see? Aha. Okay, so a vast majority of people in the room say maybe. What does our poll say? Do we have a response yet, John? You're still voting?
So this is something that happens when more than one person logs in as treasurer. Can I ask Edward and Ron to see whether they can start the poll? Because I cannot. I've seen this happen once before. We'll have to be careful of this next week. There's 3 of us that are
Okay.
Edward, are you able to start the poll? You would click under more and you would click polls.
I mean, people could also
Okay,
just
the
respond in the
poll-
chat if you like,
Yeah, maybe that's what we had to do.
just in the
Okay.
interest of time.
The poll is set up, but it's a technical Zoom glitch.
Okay.
Oh,
While you're doing that, I just wanted to mention that somebody has also laid out some materials at the back. If you're interested in reading a little bit more about the monarchy, there's a Zoomer article. There's also a map showing all the royal places, the royal visits that have been here, and an article about the abolishing of the monarchy in Canada. So after the talk, if you wanted to, you could take a look at those. Okay, how are we doing?
yes, the poll did come up, and yeah, here we go. I'm going to give the mic to Ron. No, I'm going to give you the traveling mic.
I'm
No,
going to
not.
guess it's going to be a very similar response.
Okay, we've got 11 votes here.
Yes, 11 votes.
No, we got 14 votes.
14?
They're still coming in.
Do I have 15? Anybody got 16?
Okay, so far it's 5 out of 11, out of 14, which is 45%.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Sorry, 5 out of 11. Why is- there's one- Oh, okay, there's 14 people online and 11 people have participated.
Gotcha.
Okay. And 5 of those have said, yes, absolutely. That's 45%.
Okay, 5. Mhm.
One person says, not a chance.
Gotcha. Not a
Okay,
chance.
5% say, yeah, we'll give it a shot.
Maybe. And 4 went for coffee. Okay. All right.
That-
So we have a bit of a mix. I think we've got a few more monarchists here in the room, or maybe skeptic monarchists. So let's go on a little bit and talk about this. Next slide, please. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of present a couple of arguments, one pro and one con, and I'm very interested in your thoughts as well. So first of all, if we look at the king as a man, all right, so we'll talk about him as a prince in a minute, but as a man, a lot of people have these thoughts in their minds. He cheated on Princess Diana, right? He did that notorious, interview where he admitted it. The Dimbleby interview, which again is another reason why the royals never do interviews. In 70 years, the Queen has never done an interview. And obviously she never will, because any of the interviews that have happened have been disastrous. This was the first one, Diana's Panorama one, Prince Andrew, in his own mind maybe, Prince Andrew, and then of course the Oprah. The Camilla Gate tape, which, I won't say much more about that, but if anybody knows anything about it, it was a pretty revealing, intimate exchange between 2 obvious people in love, and it disgusted a lot of people. And even to this day, there's long-standing public adoration of Princess Diana. You can Google her and you'll get millions of hits. I write about her. People want to still talk about her, and the loyalty factor is huge. Even though she wasn't perfect, far from it. She cheated as well, and she had her issues. But in people's minds, they still see there's 3 of us in the marriage. It was a bit crowded, right? That's what the perception is. And then, of course, who can follow in the Queen's footsteps? I mean, those are pretty mighty shoes to fill. 70 years of service without a complaint, and standing in the rain and doing all those things, and really upholding the crown after all that time. I can imagine it's a daunting proposition for him. All right, next slide. Now, what about some of the possible pros? I think people are going to be astonished and astounded once the Queen actually passes and they hear some of the things that Prince Charles has done, because understandably, you're not going to be promoting the next guy when the person is in power, right? So he's had to take a back seat for a very, very, very long time. He was invested in Wales in 1969. That's a long job wait, right? To become the job that you're born to do. He's the best trained Prince of Wales in royal history. He knows what the job is. He's been involved with the Queen, as opposed to Queen Victoria, who would never let anybody look at the royal boxes. He does, she does. Climate change. I mean, he's been a leader in this area for 40 years. He was one of the first people to talk about the impacts, and he's an environmentalist that's respected the world over. Done over 100 royal tours. He's very well respected by world leaders, which I think you'll see once he actually does become crowned. You'll see a lot of support for him around the world. And he's established that the Prince's Trust is just one of his charitable endeavors. So anybody know what the Prince's Trust is? No. All right. Well, next slide is going to tell you everything. So this was established since 1976, a very long time ago. And it was really a charity that he put in place to help young people find careers and jobs by giving them money, like seed money, basically, to start entrepreneurial type endeavors. He's helped almost 1 million people in the UK, and it's now around the world, and he's done a lot for that as well. That's one example of something he's done that has a very wide impact, but very little publicity, because people sometimes see Charles as dull, boring, not that exciting, but that's not one of the job requirements, is it? So my money still says that once he actually becomes king, you're going to see a lot of promotion about what the things that he's done in the past, and you'll be very amazed at what he has done. I think he will prevail. When the Queen Mother died, I'm sure some of you remember her. She was 101 when she passed away, and they were really worried that nobody would care, and that people would just be kind of like, okay, this is okay, a nice lady, and she's gone now. And 200,000 people filed past her coffin, in Westminster Abbey, and millions of people watched her on TV, the funeral. So people rise up, when the time comes to support the royals. So have I changed anybody's mind? Yes? Yeah, I have. Okay, thank you, Glenn. I'll take that. Anyone else? Yeah. You've changed a little bit. Which direction? Absolutely. It can't be easy to constantly defer. And believe me, the royal family is all about who the crown, where the crown sits. That's the only person that matters. And so, it's been a difficult thing for him, and he can't even talk about it. Right? I mean, I'm sure he talks about it at home, but he certainly can't talk about it in interviews. So, okay. So a couple of people, anybody online change their mind, John? Anybody in the chat?
John Kennedy says, okay, I am for one.
Okay. All right. I'll take it.
Sheila, by the way, knew that the Prince's Trust is a global charity that does, among other things, amazing things for the environment.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Okay. So I think we have to also just separate the man, from the job. And you look at other people in history, it's the job really that we should be judging him on, not his personal life. All right. So I think we're getting near the end here. A couple of more slides. Next, please. High stays, time will tell. And we don't know when that's going to happen, but he's already in his early 70s. So he's not going to be a young king, and he's not going to have a long reign. And then it'll be William's turn. And some people say, I'm surprised no one has said it yet here, why doesn't Charles just give up the throne for his son? And that's never going to happen. That's not the way that the succession in monarchy works. And I do think Charles deserves his time as king. And then William can spend his time with his young family. And when it's his time, he'll be a good king too. All right, next slide, please. So this is the future of the monarchy, and this really, I'm sure, makes the Queen happy, as well as her late husband when he was alive, is the succession is very secure. So we've got, the 4 generations coming. So we've got, the Queen, Charles, William, and then George. And then, of course, the family there with William, they've got 3 children. So the succession is looking good. I think that's on my next chart, please. So yeah, the royal line of succession is secure, which is really the purpose. Carry on, create more future heirs, and I don't think we have a problem there. Next slide. So is the royal family out of date? I think the answer really is yes and no. I think it is yes for certain, but I think that's their brand, and they're not going to veer away from that brand. That's the best known brand in the world, and it will survive. I mean, here's a balcony shot. You're going to get another 1 or 2 of them this coming weekend with the Royal RAF fly past, and this is another way for people to see the monarchy, and they want to see they're getting their value for their money. And the royal family will survive. Okay, next slide, please. So, of course, I have to end by saying long live the Queen. She's 96. This is her Platinum Jubilee coming up next weekend. Anybody know if she lasted until the 80th anniversary, what Jubilee that would be? Oak. I just learned this a couple of days ago. I guess they're out of jewels by the time it gets to that point. Okay.